Hi, hello, hope you're doing well. This one is gonna be a little different. Well, usually I try to do something different. And this time I'll do a reaction video on the reviews that I can find online. Well, basically I've chosen to go with the YouTube. Basically I'll be watching those from beginning to end. So I've watched all of these reviews before, but I haven't watched them for like the past year, I guess. The first one on the list is Top 5 Studio Mixing Headphones by Sean Devine or Devine.
Hey, what's going on out there? I'm Sean Devine. Hope you all are doing well. Coming in at number 4 are the OLLO Audio S4, and these are right around €300, 350 USD, and have some great advantages in terms of just the way that they translate. I've done a lot of mixing, even some mastering on these, and they translate extremely well outside of the studio on other speakers. They're also great for long-term wear just because they're very comfortable. Now, these are some of the most comfortable velour pads or cups on any of the headphones that I have in this list. There's a small little suspended strap up here that seems like it wouldn't do the job that well, but it's actually surprisingly comfortable, and it extends here. So you've got some customization there in terms of the size. They're also just a really solid build. They've got a unique look to them, and they do have replaceable cables, so you can just pull out the cable on each end, and if you need to replace them, it's very easy to do that. As far as disadvantages for the S4, the first thing that I noticed when I got these was that there's these 2 metal rods up top, and they're used to provide some reinforcement. However, you'll notice that if you just kind of barely touch them or flick them, or you kind of move suddenly, they cause a bit of a vibration, and that doesn't happen very often. They're also a little bit heavier than the others in the list. So if you're wearing these for long periods, just something to consider. I haven't had any issues with, having discomfort, but just keeping in mind with the wood design, they do have a little bit more weight to them.
Yeah, absolutely sure. So Sean was spot on over here. The original S4 were made with a steel arch there, and that arch created vibrations if it was struck. So it's not an issue. If you're just wearing them and listening to music, you'll be fine. But if you struck them or you rub on the steel, you will get a little bit of so-called microphonics inside the cups, the ear pad, and so the cavity that the ear pads creates is completely sealed. There is no, let's call it a bus reflex or whatever. So that is kind of like a negative, but at the same time, that brings a lot of clarity to these headphones, because when the speaker moves just a little bit, you're gonna hear it easier. So it's an acoustical thing that we've developed and embedded consciously into the design of the headphones, so that you can really hear every little movement of the membrane on the speaker. So for example, if you're a mixing professional or mastering engineer, you will use something like a 1 dB deduction or compression, and you will be able to hear that, and which is the whole point. So that is what we do over here. We try to make the best possible headphones for mixing and mastering, and the acoustics are just following the rules to do that. Simple as that. So Sean is spot on over here in terms of there is the arch problem that was resolved with the S4X, but for some reasons reviewers are still like, oh my god, it makes noise and you will hear it if you touch it, so if you bang it. So you can get whatever headphones you want, and if you're gonna bang on them, you're gonna hear that noise. That happens with every headphone. So it's a little bit of like a clickbaity thing that I don't really appreciate by the reviewers, but hey, I guess I understand what they wanna do there. Let's take a look at the second review that has the most views. So it's at 20,000 views right now.
Hey guys, DMS here today. I have for you these
from DMS
OLLO S4X. I'm going to pull up OLLO's website real quick because I want to show you guys something. It says on here, designed and measured using the IEC 60318-1 standard.
Remember that part, the 6318-1 standard. That's what we're using. That is what was at the time published on the web page as our measurement device and standard.
Measurements. It's based on measurements. There's a big comparison on here with their measurements between these headphones and tons of other popular headphones. And some pretty convincing looking stuff on here about their research and all the different things they've measured, and information about the Harman target, which isn't the target that they're after.
So interestingly enough, yes, we did the comparisons with other headphones because that, in my opinion, is the best way to get an idea of how our products sound in comparison to something else. That's why the comparisons were there. And yeah, we did at the time mention Harman target curve right there on the web page, where we basically said, hey, if you're looking for Harman target, it's a different target, and we explained it briefly how it's different and how we are really not using it.
Interestingly enough, there isn't any information about what the target they're after is on this site, and I'm gonna remove all these other headphones for a second just so we can look at theirs. So I tried to do some detective work. I wanted to sit down and figure out what are they considering neutral, what are they considering flat, what are they measuring for? If this is a headphone that is designed and built entirely for reference sound for measurements to measure a certain way, it'd probably be good if we knew what their target or what...
So Douglas over here is completely on point. It would be nice to know exactly what the target curve we used, but it was actually fairly clear that we were using measurements as raw measurements with the mentioned standard without applying any Harman or any compensation. And we'll actually dive into that a little bit further. I am very familiar with this review. I've watched it like a gazillion times because DMS initially kind of pissed me off a little bit with this review. We had some emails, conversation going back and forth. He did make another follow-up video later on, kind of apologizing for the mistakes he did, which I do really appreciate because he's a really cool reviewer, a really cool guy. I actually like him. But on this review, he did a few mistakes that I will point out for the future. Not so much to give him a lesson because I'm not a reviewer of the reviewers, although that would be a really nice series, wouldn't it be? Like, you know, the founder of a company, the creator of a brand and a product, reviewing reviewers and what they're saying. That would be a nice series, I think. Anyway, I like him very much, and I do appreciate everything that he's done and all the things that he brings to my personal attention as the creator, which is, of course, beneficial to you guys, to the users of our gear. Thank you, Douglas, for pointing out the mistakes that we did. And I'm kind of returning the favor, although mostly because I'm still, after 3 years, getting emails from our customers. They're referencing your review quite a lot. So I think I need to address this publicly. You're a great guy, so don't take this in any personal way. It's just me as a company owner reacting to this and trying to kind of like channel the actual truth behind it. I don't think you had bad intentions, but there was some miscommunication going on.
What they're considering flat is. These are metal on top, wood cups around the side, not much plastic on this thing. I will say they feel like they're built really, really well. The headband on top, if you hear that, is very microphonic. When this sits on my head, any sort of movements, you can hear ding, 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 like this sort of like ringing sound. So
now, with all due respect, I was completely unable to recreate that. So if I take a headphone S4 X model over here, yes, if you struck it, it will make sound, and I'll prove that other headphones do the same. But if you wear them and you move your head around, you're mixing or doing whatever, the headband will not ring. It does not create any microphonics whatsoever. So I have no idea why a reviewer would say that moving your head will create microphonics from the headband resonance when that's just not true. Here's another headphone, for example, which has basically a very similar design. So there's a strap and a headband that is basically designed in a very similar manner. So it does that as well, right? So it's the same thing. And if you put them on, and you move your head, well, nothing happens. Of course, they don't make any sound, although they are a little bit squeaky at the moment, and this kind of like needs tightening every once in a while. But hey, I'm not the reviewer, so what do I know? I don't think you can really avoid it. You're introducing vibrations to the material, to the chassis, which will be translated in here into creating little sound waves that your ears will, of course, pick up. Let's continue.
Not the best thing in the world, but I do feel like they're pretty sturdy. I don't feel like they're going to fall apart. They have dual 2.5mm entry, so it's nice the cable is removable. And right here we have a pretty generic dynamic driver. Nothing too special. Another quick note real quick. These really don't take any power. You can power them on pretty much anything. Laptop, any amp is going to be fine. Any audio interface, mixer, whatever. They're pretty easy to power. And they don't really benefit from a nicer amplifier. They're too low of impedance to use with tubes.
Exactly. So they are 30 ohms. You can drive them with anything. He's spot on. The description here has absolutely no flaws.
But this headphone has clearly been tuned using a variety of materials, the pad design, to achieve their target that they're after. Things like this little ring to help slide the pads on is a smart design choice. I would like some way to isolate this from the actual headphones. We don't get as much of a microphonic headband, but it is what it is.
It is what every headphone does.
Let's talk about sound and loop back around to that email. So I emailed them and I basically asked, hey, I couldn't find out what your target curve is. You guys are doing all these measurements. It's really cool. I like to see when a studio or reference marketed product is consistent with some sort of reference standard. And the first guy said, well, there is no compensation curve at all. They're raw measurements, which that's not a raw measurement. You're missing the entire ear gain region. That's okay.
All right, so over here is where the confusion starts, and that's where one of the reasons why our customers are sending me emails asking about this review and what's going on over here. So the 6318-1 standard is a so-called ERP simulator, which means that it simulates at the entrance level. So just before the sound waves enter your ear canal, it's a different simulation than 6318-4, so-called 711 coupler, which will be the DRP, which means drum-related positioning, capturing or simulating, including the so-called ear gain or the ear canal gain. It's basically just an assumption that we are using the 711 coupler.
Okay. Another guy came in right after that and emailed me from another email address from that company and said that the target curve and the compensation is flat to the human ear. So I said, okay, so are we talking about a Fletcher-Munson curve, an equal loudness curve, something like that? And the guy basically said, truthfully, I don't know. It's just whatever our measurement rig came as.
All right, so that is oversimplification over here. So what we are using, or at the time, we were not using any target curves on top of that measurement rig, but the rig itself and the standard that it was made upon, it's designed to mimic how human ear works or interacts when it's introduced with a device under testing with a DOT. So when you have a headphone situation on top of that device, the acoustic coupling over there mimics how an average human ear hears. So essentially, we have the equal loudness embedded into the device itself. In short, yes, when you're using and measuring with that device, the flat curve there would be something very close to equal loudness contours. That's how it was designed.
So they got their measurement rig, they plugged in the default calibration file, which they believe is a equal loudness curve, which is essentially what our ears hear.
So there is no calibration for this. The only thing that you can calibrate are the two microphones in there, of course, but you're only calibrating the SPL levels, so you have a matching system. You're not calibrating anything in relation to the response of those microphones. So there's not like using A, B, or C, whatever weighting system or anything like that. It's just the SPL level calibration.
And have tuned to that. The thing is it's not actually an equal loudness curve. The curve that their measurement rig comes with is the Gross-Keymar diffuse field target curve. When we compensate our measurements for Gross-Keymar diffuse field, look at that. Aside from being on a 5 decibel scale instead of a 10 decibel scale, we can press this in. This looks a lot like their measurement. How interesting. It does adhere pretty well to Gross-Keymar diffuse field. Now, if I were to, say, take that and post a raw measurement of it. So here's a raw measurement, not compensated. And the green line overlaid here is Gross-Keymar diffuse field. You can see we have the ear gain regions. This is a raw measurement. It's pretty adherent to that target response. I would say that this is very neutral to Gross-Keymar diffuse field. So they did hit their target. They just didn't know what their target was. And with that said, I would argue that there's probably significantly better targets to take. If you're truly going for flat to the human ear, you should look at an equal loudness curve. But really for studio use, this isn't bad. You can get away with this. But there is a headphone that measures better and costs less. Now, in this case, I'm overlaying with a Harman combined target. I'm not a big fan of the Harman target because I feel like the low end is extremely boosted. This is the upper mid-range and treble from the Harman 2018, but the lower range from Harman 2013. Personally, I would say that a much better target would be Harman treble and just flat through the lows instead of this boosted a little bit they have down here. But we're using this just as a reference point to compare to the Harman combined target, which was...
All right, so the Harman, he would like to see without the low end boost over here, which is basically what these headphones does really, really well. So if you would extend this down into the diffuse field, this headphone would be like spot on from 20 Hertz all the way basically to this region over here, which is a coupling situation. So the 7 and something 7,000, is it 7K? At roughly 7K, the resonance will change and it will move slightly around because it's a resonance between the coupling device. So it's an acoustic impedance thing happening over there with the 711 couplers. And you're going to see that on multiple headphones. Not on all, but it's usually there. And even in his review later on, he introduces another headphone from Sennheiser. It's still there. It's just not at 7. It moves to 9. So that is a coupling situation. It's not necessarily going to be there, and it's not necessarily produced by the headphone. It's a measurement jig kind of limitation over there. So what I wanted to say over here is that DMS mentioned a better target, which I do kind of agree. Well, not just kind of agree. I agree with DMS on these. The really good target for studio mixing would be something like he is mentioning. So the Harman kind of go on the Harman target without the bass boost. I think that's where we want to be. The high end from Harman is also over here, very, very basically spot on to how they measure. So this headphone that he had over there, measuring and comparing to the Harman combined target made by Andrew, is basically, well, spot on if we include his comment that the bass should be recessed for the ideal target. So basically what we are seeing over here is a measurement that is almost spot on to what he would perceive as a really good sounding headphone. So I'm a little confused what's going on over here with what I see and understand and what he's saying. But again, I don't want to say anything in particular about Douglas because he is a great guy. He really does love headphones, and I appreciate him very, very much. I do think that this review was a little bit of a slip on his side, and he did some mistakes that I don't think he should do.
Was generated by Andrew. This is not an actual publication from Harman. Like I said, this is Harman treble and upper mid-range from 2018 with the bass from 2013. and we're only using it to see differences here. So overlaid with this is the Sennheiser HD 560S. And you can see in many ways they're very similar. The 560S doesn't suffer from dips in the three places that the OLLO S4X does. They both have a bit of a spike, the OLLO S4X around like 3.5 kilohertz, with the 560S closer to like 4.2 kilohertz. But if you look around 7K, the dip isn't as bad. If you look around 600 hertz, it's not as recessed. If you look around 70 hertz, it's not as recessed. The 560S is a more linear headphone.
Yeah, the 560S is a very linear headphone. It's a great product. I have absolutely no complaints about it. But I do have the 7K dip is not as much on the 560. I do agree with that, but there is 9 and 10K dip that he forgot to mention. It's there, and again, I think that dip is just a measurement device flaw. There are limits on the 711 coupler, and that resonance will move around a little bit depending on the acoustic coupling of the device under test. So it will be there just at different levels and different positions depending on the headphones that you put on the measurement device.
Both to the Harman combined target, but also to Gross Kemar diffuse field. And I'm going to go on and say real quick, if you are looking for a studio headphone that adheres to a relatively neutral frequency response, the 560S is immediately a better option. Which is not to say that if you own the OLLO S4X that it's a bad choice, but I think that in both comfort and in accuracy, it does lag behind the significantly cheaper 560S. Though I do think the build is tougher on the S4X.
You know what would be nice? To see if the 560S make any noise. Let's find those. So here's the same model, the 560S. So if you do that, they make noise. They're a little tight, I need to make them bigger. So if I do that, of course I can hear it here, just as with any other headphone. So in that regard, it's always going to be there. It's just materials that will make noise if you touch them. Of course, they make noise. If you move your head, they don't make noise, just like any other headphone. So these are really good headphone, for the money. So I agree with DMS. If you're looking for something on the budget, these are cool. Although for my taste, a little bit too bright and annoying. I do think that the 490s are a little bit better choice, but they come to the same price bracket.
Yeah. In fact, the only real problem that I have with this headphone, because I will say this is overall a good headphone. The problem that I have with it, however, is that while they have done some of the research and they have put in effort to adhere to a target, it doesn't appear that they've done enough research into measurements to really understand what target they're after. And I think that is equally as important as doing what they've done here. Yes, it is impressive coming close to a target, but if you don't understand what your target is, what's the point? The measurements of their closed-back headphone look promising in comparison. If anybody from OLLO ends up watching this, I like where you're going with this. Try to take a little more time to understand the compensations and the target you're going for. Because if this were to be compared to an equal loudness curve, it does not sound completely flat. The dips are audible. I think this could use a better driver because detail isn't quite where it should be at a $399 headphone. The biggest benefit I would say that this headphone has over other headphones is that it is not a very fatiguing sound. Because of the dip in this treble region, it is much easier to listen to for longer periods of time than some other reference headphones I've heard. But I really do feel like compared to some other reference headphones, you are missing out on some crucial information.
In terms of the overall sound designs, they are tuned down a little bit on the high end. That is due to mimicking the room target. So usually in a room you will have slight tilt. It's just, preference, and that's how rooms are usually treated and tuned. So in order to have a great translation of your mixing between headphones and room acoustics, obviously it's nice to have a little bit of a tilt on the high end. So he's spot on. He's saying the right things over here.
I like the craftsmanship. I like where this is going. They're clearly an independent company. They don't have, the same kind of budget that Sennheiser has.
I actually I don't know if I can say that. Well, actually I can. It's a public information. So a few years ago, I actually tried to understand what is the R&D budget for a big company like Sennheiser. And I remember, I don't know exactly what year it was, but I remember it being over 70 million for R&D. Now that is insane. So we are a super tiny company in comparison to them, obviously. But it's nice to understand the scale of budgets that are involved to push a product to the market.
To throw at projects like this. And a little bit more understanding of where they're headed, a little more understanding of the target they're trying to hit, and if that is actually the target they're going for, because after what they've said and seeing the target that their rig is calibrated to, I think that once again, they would probably do better recalibrating or aiming for a target that is closer to what they're describing, an equal loudness curve. And I hope they manage to do that. I hope that OLLO can take the time to, sit down and figure out a target curve that's right for them, or just to at least alter their marketing to say, our target curve is Grosskeymer diffuse field, because while I do love the whole idea of making studio headphones after measurements, I don't like the idea of marketing a headphone based on its measurements without actually knowing what you're measuring for and what your target is. It's a little bit misleading, and I don't think that's their intention.
As mentioned several times before, we did not have anything specifically published on the target curves that we are using. We do have that now, and we have a full video on how the target curves are created and how we've built our own target curve. So I think we are way ahead in comparison to almost any other manufacturer out there, because you will not find anything from the big 3 or 4 companies, or 5 actually, in regards to the target curves that they are following. So it's not publicly available information. We are one of the very few companies, if not the only one, that actually has a target curve published, and the process of how it was made and explained in full detail on every individual measurement chart that you see. You will have exactly the device used for measuring. You will have exactly the signal chain, the excitement signal, the exciter signal. So I can't really agree here with DMS that we are, trying to mislead. I can easily flip that around and say, hey DMS, sorry, there's quite a few things over here that are misleading. If you end up watching this, you're a fantastic reviewer. There's nothing personal about this. I'm just spotting things that create issues with my support team and our clients. So we have to go back and forth and explain this again and again and again. So I'm hopefully with this reaction video to your review as well, hopefully I'm shedding some light on this, and this video will be used, of course, in our support channels and support snippets to be sent out to people asking about it. So I think you're doing a great job. Again, please don't take this personally. It's not. I need to address things that are kind of wrong or that are miscommunicated, and I think I did that fair and square. I do hope to meet you in person, maybe in Can Jam, New York or London, maybe next year. I'm not sure when I'm gonna go, but I would enjoy meeting you and exchange opinions and ideas, and I think you're a great guy. So let's dive into Streaky right now. What does he have to say?
So I've been sent these headphones, well they're not headphones like a box, but it's from OLLO headphones. I've been told by loads of people to check these out, so I gave them a shout, asked if I could get a set over. Here we are, let's get unboxing. So, a bit of a cardboard box straight away, let's flip that open. Save the planet. You can't listen to music in space. How right they are. So inside we have a little manual that comes. It's very nice. Let's get rid of that. Little owner's manual. Some kind of certificate of authenticity. I'll pick them up after. I know it feels disrespectful, but it'll be fine. Some cables here. They look very nice. So a bit of red action that go into the headphones, and then this looks like a corded cable to a jack at the end, a gold jack. Oh, also it's got a little, I mean, what would the world be without that little attachment? So that comes as standard with it. Get rid of that for a minute. So then we have a little pouch, little carry case pouch. Very nice, bit of pleather. We always like that. So that's to carry them around. Bit of packaging. And here we get to the good stuff. The headphones. Anything else in there? That's it. But they feel really kind of not homemade, not, you know, they're not falling apart, but they just feel very kind of together and kind of, you know, they've got a warm feeling about them. Like they're not, you know, it's wood, it's organic is the word I'm looking for. This is like a plastic material on the top. I always think headphones with this setup are really comfortable. So this is kind of holding them together, this metal strap, and then you get this tension bar underneath, which is nice. A few other headphones do that. They feel really comfortable because as you put them on your head, they kind of just slot into place. These have got like a velour inside, which is really nice on hot days like today. So you haven't got this big sweat thing going around your head. When you've got leather on there, it really makes your ears sweaty. So even on a hot, sweaty day like today, they're still very, very comfortable. And they slot in your ears fairly well as well. They're not, you know, because they're not massive, they're not big chunky things, but they sit on your ears right inside there, very comfortable. Yeah, light, they're not too heavy. 10 out of 10 on looks, feel and weight, big time. I think that's great. Just check them out. I mean, they look really cool. How did they sound after 24 hours? Well, before we get stuck into that, let's look at a few tech specs, shall we, on exactly what is going on under the wood. Frequency range 20 Hertz to 20K. SPL, these are the S4Xs, so they have a SPL of 108 dB. An impedance of 32 ohms, which means that they're perfect for any smart devices. The ear cups are American walnut, and they do have a nautical artificial leather, which is what I was saying was pleather earlier on. And they're obviously dynamic headphones and they're open back. So sound-wise, I actually think these sound, when I compared them to these classic Sennheisers, I actually think these are better. They have a tighter sound to them. They're more open. The open back doesn't make them really wide. They're pretty sort of, if I'd say there rather than there. So yeah, they're not massively open in the sound stage, but they're together. You can hear low notes in them. So when I drove them quite hard with a headphone amp, they did start to distort a little bit in the low end. These are great all-rounders. So where the Sennheiser 650 slots in, that's exactly where you want to be looking at these. So these are definitely worth a look. I really like the organicness of them. I think they feel a lot less kind of, they look much better than this kind of thing. You know, they've got more of a kind of wood and open back. They look really high end. So for sub £300 headphones, these are pretty good. These would definitely be worth a look if you are in that market for something that's a good all-rounder. The tops you can hear really sharp, really clear. So they play back the full spectrum of sound in a really nice way. And you can use them with your iPhone as well as using them in the studio or just a general use. So yeah, definitely on my top list of sub £500 headphones. I recommend these. I'm happy with them. They're going to be staying here with me. They won't be going back because these are going to be my general purpose all-round headphones. And these can, quite frankly, go in the bin.
Yeah, Streaky is just almost doing a sales pitch for us over there. So in terms of the 600 series are really good headphones. So it's I think he's doing a little bit of drama there, throwing them into the bin. I do think that the 600 and the 650 are really good. very similar frequency response than the S4 would have. There is something that he said, and something like the sound stage is a little bit more narrow, which is absolutely true, and it's part of the design. So again, we have like a speaker that is, pushing the sound into the cavity, which is created between your ears and the headphones, with the ear pad kind of sealing it off. So we have like air that is trapped in there, and because of that, it cannot really resolve back out really nicely. And because of that, we have less sound stage than it would be there if we would have like a fully open design. So in comparison with the 600 series, they are more narrow, but that was a part of the design choices that we've made. Streaky, an incredible mastering engineer from the UK. He's been working with, I believe, with Adele and Ed Sheeran and so on. So he's a really, really good mastering engineer. Do follow him if you're into mixing and mastering. He has a lot of tips that he's sharing on shorts and reels. So do I encourage you to do that if you want to learn from the pro himself. Anyway, thank you for watching. If you have any comments, put them down below. If you have like an idea for the next video, maybe I can do really like another reaction video on something. Maybe I should react on, how about I would do like a reaction video on a competitor video, on a competitor headphone. Something like, I don't know, a reviewer reviewing one of our competitors, and I would react to it. Would that be something that, could be interesting to watch on Saturday evening, or I don't know? Let me know down below in the comments. Stay safe and sound. Enjoy. Bye.